The Brown family had experienced arguments in the past. Years of mistrust, tension, and jealousy had constructed a wobbly tower, waiting to topple with a little push. This evening, though, was different. This was not another fight over time, spent with one wife versus another, or children feeling neglected. This was something different. Something that got to the core of what Janelle thought she had constructed with Kody Brown. The night started innocently enough. Janelle perched at the long dining table, arms crossed, staring at the stack of documents before her. Bank statements, receipts, transfers, numbers, and dates, scribbled in red ink. Every page weighed more than stone. She had already read through them a dozen times, every reading reinforcing her worst suspicion. Kody wasn't irresponsible with money. He was concealing it. Kody walked in, his boots clacking sharply on the hardwood floor. His face was inscrutable, but his body language was screaming irritation. He resented when Janelle referred to these as meetings. He said they made him feel like a kid being berated by his mom. "Whatever is this about?" Kody demanded, his tone already irritated. He didn't even sit down. He loomed over her, taller, attempting to make good on the authority that had once kept the wives in check. Janelle didn't blink. She nudged the pile of documents towards him. "Care to tell me about these?" Kody's gaze flicked to the papers, but briefly, he snorted, throwing his hand up. "Seriously, Janelle? More paperwork? More accusations? Haven't you figured out yet that running a family like ours requires flexibility?" Her tone was calm, but there was flame beneath. "Flexibility does not mean emptying accounts, Kody. It doesn't mean using money that was meant for our children's college and transferring it into Robin's home. Do you think I would be blind? Do you think I wouldn't notice?" That name, Robin, was a trigger. Kody's face flushed with color. He pounded his hand against the table, the thud ringing like a gunshot. The papers fluttered, skittering across the floor like fallen leaves. "Don't you dare bring Robin into this," Kody bellowed, his voice echoing throughout the house. "She's the only one who stood by me. She's the only one only one you care about anymore." Janelle cut in, her voice as hard as a knife cutting through his words. "Don't try to make this about loyalty. This is about control. And money. You've been taking from me, Kody, from all of us. And I have evidence." For a moment the room was silent, except for the sound of Janelle's heavy breathing. Kody stood frozen, his jaw clenched, his fists balled so tight his knuckles turned white. The man who once strutted with confidence, who once commanded attention with his charisma, now looked cornered. "Proof?" he finally sneered. "What proof?" "You're imagining things, Janelle. You've always been dramatic." Janelle stooped down, picked up the scattered papers, and slapped them onto the table. She shook her finger, pointing at the lines that were highlighted, her hand shaking with rage. "This is not fantasy. See here: withdrawals, transfers, accounts registered in your name and Robin's. Thousands of unexplained dollars. You believe the banks do not maintain records? You believe I would not discover this?" Kody's face contorted, his smugness crumbling beneath the pressure of reality. "You don't have any idea how difficult it is to keep this family afloat." His voice trembled now, louder, frantic. "The bills, the costs, the stress. I made decisions. I kept it going. You think Christine or Mary ever did a thing? You think anyone but Robin has been there for me? And so you stole from me?" Janelle's voice shook, but not with fear. This was anger, the one that had been seething for years and was now overrunning her. "You stole from your own children, from my children, from our future." The battle was no longer words. It was years of anger erupting all at the same time. The walls shook with their rage. A frame on the shelf leaned from the pressure of Kody, slapping his hand once more. "You don't get it," Kody roared. His hair, once so carefully styled for the cameras, hung messily across his face, sweat dripping down his temples. "I built this family. Without me, you'd have nothing." "Nothing." Janelle rose now, her chair scraping on the floor with a screech. Her gaze fastened on his, unyielding. "Without us? Kody, without us? You'd be nothing. We stood by you. We made sacrifices for you. And you pay us back this way. By lying, by cheating, by putting money into one household while the rest of us starved? The words burned. Kody recoiled, as if the reality itself had hit him harder than any punch. He prepared to respond, but nothing came out. His chest heaved and fell quickly. His breathing strained. Lastly, he regained his voice. Softer this time, but laced with venom. You won't break me, Janelle. You think you can stand up to me? To everything I've created? You're mistaken. I'll make you regret this. But Janelle wasn't giving in. Not now. The days of silence, of compromise, of not calling them on it, those days were finished. She shook the papers into a folder, closed it and pressed it against her body. I'm finished, Kody, she replied, icily. You've pushed too many boundaries. This is no longer about marriage. This is about the law. I'm filing this in court, and when I'm through, the entire world is going to finally see who you actually are. Her words just hung in the air. A death sentence. Kody glared at her, his face a picture of shock and rage. You would dare, he spat. Janelle moved one step closer, her tone quiet but firm. Watch me. There was a silence so complete, it was almost palpable. Even the house itself seemed to be holding its breath, as if it understood that this was the moment when everything shifted. The delicate veneer of the Brown family had finally cracked. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked and shattered the sinister silence. In the distance, a siren howled. But within that house, time was stuck. Janelle turned and moved away, her steps ringing with finality. Kody stood frozen to the floor, shaking, his kingdom of control imploding around him. For the first time, he knew he was no longer the boss of his domain. And for the first time he realized, Janelle wasn't bluffing. This wasn't another brawl. This was the start of his fall. The courthouse hummed long before the gavel ever came down. Reporters packed the steps, their microphones extended like guns at anyone who shared the last name Brown. Camera crews shoved one another around, flashbulbs popping in the cool morning air. This was not another celebrity divorce hearing. This was the unmasking of Kody Brown, the patriarch who had spent more than a decade assuring America that he was the head of a working if unorthodox family. To Sister Wives fans, he was either a beacon of plural marriage pride, or a warning of unchecked ego. To the media though, this was blood in the water. Inside, the atmosphere was claustrophobic. The mahogany walls of the courtroom towered over the crowded benches, each one occupied by spectators, reporters and nosy locals who had been following the Browns' drama like a soap opera. Kody entered first, chin raised defiantly, but his eyes giving him away. They flitted about, sweeping the tide of faces. He adjusted his suit jacket, golden curls tumbling a bit too untamed over his brow. This was meant to be his stage. Yet for the first time the glare of the spotlight seemed a searing interrogation lamp. Behind him, Robin grasped her handbag tightly, her lips pursed into a thin, worried line. She appeared to be on the verge of tears before things even got started. Across the aisle, Janelle sat rigid-backed, her own face serene but unyielding. Her attorney, a keen-eyed woman with a towering file stack that seemed almost a weapon itself, bent forward to whisper something, and Janelle nodded imperceptibly. Behind her, Christine and Mary sat side by side, an unlikely coalition built on betrayal. They were there as a visual statement. They trusted Janelle. The judge entered, robe sweeping, gavel in hand. Court is now in session. His voice thundered through the chamber. We are here to hear the case of Janelle Brown versus Kody Brown on charges of financial misconduct, fraud and breach of marital trust. A murmur rippled across the room, echoing like a storm swell. Cameras clicked furiously. Kody stood up, his attorney adjusting his tie, reminding him to keep his cool in a hushed whisper. But Kody couldn't. Not today. He'd been needled about his pride, and he wasn't comfortable being in the hot seat, literally or otherwise. Janelle's attorney didn't hesitate. She rose, her stilettos clicking on the gleaming floor, and started to present the case. Your Honor, over a period of years Mr. Brown siphoned money out of joint accounts that were there for the use of the family into investments, extravagant purchases and houses that belonged to only one household. His household with Robin Brown. Those were not open choices. Those were not shared with the other wives. Those were actually conscious acts of deception. She picked up a fat binder and slapped it down on the evidence table with a resounding thump. And the proof. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his mouth compressing into a hard line. The judge leaned forward over his spectacles. Go on. The initial pages had images of bank statements blown up, each projected onto the screen of the courtroom for all to view. The figures were glaring: tens of thousands of missing funds, random transfers, accounts that had seemingly materialized and disappeared with equal facility. Janelle sat quietly, hands locked in her lap, but a pounding heart. Each word, each line of evidence, reinforced the depth to which Kody had wounded her trust. When it was Kody's turn to respond, he shot up from his seat, ignoring his lawyer's tug at his sleeve. This is ridiculous. His voice boomed, bouncing off the courtroom walls. I have carried this family on my back for years. Do you know how much pressure that is? Do you know what it takes to feed, clothe, and house 4 separate families? I had to make hard choices. Mr. Brown, the judge cautioned, keep yourself in hand. But Kody was not listening. He pointed his finger in the air at Janelle. She's manipulating everything. She's bitter because she couldn't deal with the sacrifices this lifestyle required. Bitter because I found someone who actually encourages me. His eyes darted to Robin, who cringed as if she wished to slide beneath the wooden bench and vanish. The judge's gavel crashed down. Mr. Brown, this is not a reality television show. This is a court of law. You will calm down, or I will hold you in contempt. The courtroom gasped. For the first time, Kody sat back down, his jaw tightened so tightly that it seemed it might snap. Janelle's attorney continued, measured and cool. Your Honor, this is not a case of personal jealousy. This is a case of financial betrayal. Money designated for joint family investments, children's education, joint properties was diverted into individual accounts. Mr. Brown used a joint family trust as his private wallet. The binder opened again, and this time the projection showed emails. Kody's own words, ordering transfers, brushing aside worries from accountants, and even once writing, "Don't tell Janelle, she'll overreact." The words lingered in the air. Toxic. Christine leaned forward, whispering something to Mary, who shook her head and laughed harshly. The audience squirmed uncomfortably. Even Kody's defenders looked shaken. Then came the witnesses. Christine was called first. She walked to the stand with quiet confidence, swearing the oath before sitting down. Mrs. Brown, the lawyer began, did you ever witness financial irregularities during your marriage to Kody? Christine wasn't slow to answer. Yes, I was bullied into signing over funds from the sale of my house in Las Vegas. Kody said it would go towards our shared property at Coyote Pass. But then I discovered, it went into an account with no access for me. When I questioned it, he dismissed me. Kody grumbled under his breath, loudly enough for onlookers to overhear. That's not true. The judge's gavel came down once more. Mr. Brown, that's enough. Then it was Mary. She testified more begrudgingly, but her testimony was convincing. He always made the money decisions, she acknowledged quietly. I wasn't permitted to question it. Any time I did, he said I didn't get it. I trusted him, but now I know. Perhaps I shouldn't have. Robin sat paralyzed, tears welling up in her eyes, obviously caught between the need to defend Kody and the undeniable proof piling up against him. Every witness hammered in another nail into Kody's coffin of believability. His control kingdom, a kingdom he had built over years, was shaking before cameras, reporters, strangers. Lastly, Janelle herself testified. The courtroom fell silent. She adjusted the microphone, her voice firm, though her hands shook ever so slightly. I stood by Kody for years, she started. I fought for him. I gave up for him. I believed the dream of a working family. But I can no longer deny the truth. He lied to us. He lied to me. He took what did not belong to him, and used it to raise up one home while the rest of us struggled. And when I called him out on it, he threatened me. That is not a husband. That is not a leader. That is not a man I can trust. Her statement was not bellowed, but it meant more than all of Kody's tirades put together. The judge gazed at Kody. His face beat red, sweat trickling down his forehead. The hush was thick, overpowering. All the cameras in the room zoomed in, capturing the instant. And then the judge addressed him again. We will adjourn tomorrow to examine the evidence thoroughly. Mr. Brown, You will continue to be under court order not to communicate with Mrs. Brown outside of these proceedings. Any further outbursts will not be permitted." The gavel struck again. The courtroom burst with commotion. Reporters scrambling for quotes, onlookers chattering like bees within a hive. But amidst the tumult, Kody sat rigid, his pride broken. Janelle, however, stood taller than ever, her supporters by her side. The storm had merely commenced. The second day in court dawned with an uncanny silence. Outside, reporters gathered like vultures at the courthouse steps, cameras rolling as Kody Brown stepped out in a black suit. He attempted to exude confidence, but the fishers were there. His pace was too brisk, his jaw too clenched. When he stalked past reporters screaming questions, "Kody, did you steal the money? Is Janelle telling the truth?" He didn't respond. He simply pushed through the doors with Robin walking silently behind him, her face white. There was a hum once more inside the courtroom. The wood benches filled. Christine and Mary had come back, sitting firmly behind Janelle. Their support was like a knife in Kody's side. The wives who had defended him before now stood together against him. The judge arrived on time at 9 o'clock. Gavel coming down with a warning shot. "Court is back in session. We will keep hearing testimony and examining evidence in Brown v. Brown." Janelle's attorney did not lose any time. She got up, composed but indefatigable, and spoke to the court. "Your Honor, we showed you financial records yesterday. Today we will show you communications, emails, texts, and recordings, demonstrating Mr. Brown's intentional hiding of money and his will to deceive his family." A murmur ran through the audience. Kody sat up straight in his seat. His lawyer leaned over and whispered something urgently in his ear, but Kody shooed him away, his eyes cutting at Janelle like knives. The first paper flashed onto the projector, a 2-year-old email from Kody to an accountant. The letters were blown up for everyone to read. "Keep this transaction between us. If Janelle sees it, she'll freak out. Just put it in general family expenses." Gasps erupted around the room. Kody's face grew red, his lips compressing into a hard line. He grumbled, "That's taken out of context." But the lawyer wasn't finished. She clicked to the next exhibit, a series of text messages. "Kody, transfer $10K from the joint account to Robin's. Don't say anything to the others. Accountant, that's against procedure. Shouldn't we treat it as a loan?" "Kody, no. Just do it. Trust me." There was silence so heavy you could feel it. Even Robin's face went pale. She gazed at the screen, then at Kody, her lips quivering. The judge's face turned gloomy. "Mr. Brown, is this your phone number?" Kody paused. His lawyer nodded staunchly at him, demanding he respond. At last he croaked, "Yes, Your Honor, but those texts are taken out of context. You don't know the dynamics of managing several households." The judge arched a brow. "The language appears clear." Janelle's attorney moved forward. "Your Honor, we also have witness testimony, who personally suffered the financial manipulation." She gestured toward the back. "I'd like to place Christine Brown on the stand." Christine stood, walking confidently, her face a look of determination. She had fought her own struggles with Kody. This time she knew, it was for her, for all the years of silence. Once she had sworn. She adjusted the microphone. "When I sold my home in Las Vegas," she started, "I gave Kody a lot of that money. He said he was going to put it towards the family land in Coyote Pass. I trusted him. But then I found out it had been transferred into an account that only he and Robin could access." "Did you talk to him about it?" her attorney asked. Christine nodded. "Yes, and he said I was dreaming, that I was getting emotional. He said I had to trust him, or be excluded. Back then, I did think he was right. But now it is clear to me. It was manipulation." Kody leaped out of his seat. "That is a lie. Christine, you loathe me for leaving. Do not twist this into something it wasn't." The gavel of the judge came down. "Mr. Brown, sit. One more tantrum and I'll hold you in contempt." Whispers hummed through the courtroom. Kody's mask was beginning to slip. Then Mary. She entered slowly, her hands folded, her face impassive. When she took the oath, her voice trembled, but her head remained high. "Mrs. Brown," asked the lawyer, "what was your experience with Mr. Brown, with respect to finances?" Mary flinched. For all the years she had kept silent about Kody, even when the fissures in their marriage grew wider. But now that all was revealed, it did not matter anymore to keep quiet. "He dictated everything," she said at last. "Every salary check, every expenditure, he decided.
I questioned it, but he always shot me down. He told me I didn't know anything about money. I listened, I let him handle it, but now, I recognize that wasn't trust. It was control. Her voice broke, but the words were heard across the room. The onlookers strained forward, devouring each syllable. Kody glared at her, his face contorted with anger. Mary, of all people. The judge interrupted him, brusquely. Mr. Brown, stop. Electric tension hung in the courtroom, vibrating in the walls. Most incriminating evidence, however, was still to be heard. Janelle herself took the stand. She stood, holding papers in her hand, and walked slowly towards the witness stand. After taking the oath, she drew in a deep breath. Her voice firm though, her eyes shone with tears. I didn't want to be here, she started quietly. I never wished this to reach court, but Kody gave me no option. He didn't merely spend money irresponsibly. He betrayed us. He promised our children, promised me, promised the whole family, and then diverted money elsewhere. While we struggled, he informed us that we could not pay for college, that we had to pare down necessities, but secretly support a lifestyle in one home. He left the rest of us to pick up the pieces. Her words rung like thunder. The audience shifted, some of them nodding, some of them whispering angrily. Janelle raised the papers in her hand. These are additional bank records, transfers that confirm the pattern. Thousands of dollars stolen without any discussion, and emails. His emails confessing to it. He didn't care if we starved. He cared about control. Kody's fingers shook on the table. He crouched forward, his eyes burning. You're distorting everything. You're getting me into trouble like a criminal, when all I ever did was keep this family solvent. But even as he spoke, the proof towered over him on the projector. His own words, his own deeds. Janelle glared at him, unblinking. No, Kody, you didn't hold us afloat. You drowned us and stayed dry yourself. The courtroom gasped. For an instant, time seemed to stand still. Kody remained still, his chest labored, his eyes searching wildly for someone. Robin, the judge, the jury of public opinion, to believe him. But no one stirred.
No one came to his defense. The judge leaned forward. His face was serious. Mr. Brown, the evidence before me paints a seriously disturbing picture. Your actions, if established, amount not just to financial impropriety, but to intent fraud. I will be studying these documents in detail. Kody attempted to say something, but the gavel silenced him again. The judge's tone was final. Court is adjourned until tomorrow. And Mr. Brown, I advise you to prepare yourself. The burden of testimony against you is heavy. The gavel came down. The courtroom was a din. Reporters scrambling to write up the story. Onlookers agog with amazement. But the picture that stayed was Kody Brown, slumped in his chair, defeated, his kingdom of control dismantled piece by piece. Janelle, Christine, and Mary stood, their bond a sight the world had never witnessed before. Theirs was a strength that could not be denied. Their testimony unrebuttable. And even though the trial was ongoing, one thing was certain: Kody's secrets were out, and the tempest that followed would redefine everything. This is the climax of your courtroom story. The judge's decision, Kody's downfall, the emotional tension between the wives, Robin's collapse, and the arrest that seals the suspense. I'll build this like a cinematic final act, each beat carrying tension, until the cuffs finally close on Kody. The third day in court felt heavier than the two before. The air within the courthouse was heavy, as if all knew that something irreversible was to occur. Even the journalists, who were so eager and boisterous in the mornings, whispered among themselves as they arranged their cameras outside. Kody showed up late as well. His strides were more labored, his shoulders less squared than in the past. His suit was toast, his face pale. His swagger had diminished, and in its place was something like desperation. Robin followed at his heels, already streaked with tears. She gripped his arm tightly, but Kody pushed her away, grumbling something under his breath. Within, Janelle was already sitting, with Christine and Mary on either side of her. She did not fidget. She did not pace. She sat upright, her stack of evidence folded neatly in front of her. To the naked eye, she seemed calm, but her heart pounded. She knew what today was about. The judge came in. Gavel slammed once, twice. The room was silent. Court is now in session. We will go over the evidence and testimony given here the past 2 days and move on to final statements. All of them leaned forward. The time had finally arrived. The evidence strikes again. Janelle's attorney rose unruffled as always. Your Honor, we've put before you evidence beyond dispute. Fraudulent transfers, secret accounts, the testimony of 2 wives to establish the pattern of financial dishonesty, and Mr. Brown's own written statements mandating secrecy. We contend this is not at best mismanagement. It's intentional fraud and breach of trust. She stopped, her gaze sweeping the courtroom, allowing the words to settle like a hammer blow. This wasn't an error, this was a decision. And decisions have repercussions. Kody's attorney stood at once, his voice indignant, near panicked. Your Honor, Mr. Brown had the burden of supporting an inordinately large family. His actions, though possibly poorly documented, were not fraudulent. They were the desperate acts of a man in tremendous financial and emotional stress. To label this fraud is to overlook the complexity of his situation. The judge nodded, but did not change expression. Janelle's attorney sat, and the courtroom refocused on Kody. The limelight was sizzling now. Kody's last stand. Kody stood up, defying the pull of his lawyer's hand. His voice was shaky at first, but increased in volume as he accessed anger and fear. I've given it all to this family, he bellowed, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Everything you see here today, the houses, the property, the very food on the table, was a result of my efforts, my sacrifices. And now they're going to crucify me for it. Janelle, Christine, Mary, you all turned against me after all I did for you. Christine's expression was serene, bordering on pity. Mary turned her head away, her lips clamped shut. Janelle gazed directly at him, her eyes unwavering and uncompromising. You really do think it's all about sacrifice? Janelle spoke softly, but her words had more impact than Kody's yelling. Sacrifice is giving up for the family. What you did was take away from it. You didn't sacrifice. Kody, you stole. The words hit like a thunderclap. Kody's fists were in tight balls, his face contorting. That's a lie. You're just resentful because you could never manage me picking Robin. Gasp waves shook the room. Even Robin's face dropped, her eyes spreading wide in shocked horror at being drawn into his defense. She breathed softly. Kody, stop. But he did not hear her. The gavel of the judge crashed down. Mr. Brown, this is your last warning. Sit down. Kody froze, his chest heaving. Slowly he sank back into his chair, but his eyes burned with fury. The judge speaks. The judge leaned forward, his expression stern. His words were deliberate, heavy with finality. Over the past 2 days, this court has heard extensive financial testimony, multiple witnesses' accounts, and direct communications written by Mr. Brown. What I observe is an evident pattern: willful hiding of money, misappropriation of shared resources, and manipulation of family members in the name of leadership. This court does not take kindly to the betrayal of trust, particularly when it involves economic harm to one's own household. The courtroom was stone silent. Kody's face went white. Robin went to take his hand, but he jerked it away, seething at the floor. The judge went on. Mr. Brown, this isn't a case of family differences. This is fraud, and fraud is against the law. There was a shocked gasp from the courtroom. Cameras snapped wildly. I see enough evidence to proceed with criminal charges. Mr. Brown, you are under arrest for financial fraud and contempt of court. The gavel came down, ringing like a death knell. The arrest. The courtroom descended into chaos. The reporters yelled questions. The spectators whispered and gestured. Christine put her hand over her mouth in shock, and Mary shook her head, eyes closed. But Janelle remained seated, her eyes welling with tears. Tears of relief, not of sadness. It was finished. Howdy was joined by 2 bailiffs in uniforms. His chair scraped against the floor as he leaped to his feet. No. This is all wrong. You can't do this to me. I'm the father of this family. I'm the head. I built this. The bailiffs clamped his arms. He writhed, contorting wildly, his voice splintering into wails. Robin, do something. Don't let them take me. Robin was crying openly now, her hands shaking. But she didn't act. She couldn't. Metallic clang of handcuffs echoed through the room, sharp and final. The noise quieted even the reporters. Kody Brown, the man who had once pranced confidently on national television, was handcuffed like a regular felon. His eyes scanned the room frantically, seeking a friendly face, someone to come to his rescue. But there were only stares. Cold, pitying, satisfied. Christine leaned over to Janelle and whispered, "It's really happening." Janelle merely nodded, her hands shaking as she gripped her folder of evidence more tightly. The bailiff started to take Kody toward the side door, but he struggled until the judge growled, "Order in the court." The gavel came down again, drowning out Kody's raw protests. The fallout in the room. As Kody was pulled out, the wives sat silently. Christine's eyes shone with tears. Not of happiness, but of freedom. Mary seemed shaken, as if comprehending completely, for the first time, the level of control Kody had exerted. Janelle let out a deep breath, her shoulders finally unclenching after months of strain. Robin slumped into her chair, crying wildly. Mascara streams down her face as she mutters, "This was not meant to be. He swore to me." But no one consoles her. The reporters mobbed the moment the gavel let them go, asking questions in a shout. "Janelle, how do you feel? Christine, did you find justice? Mary, did you think this would happen?" None of them replied. Instead, Janelle got up, picked up her belongings and left with Christine and Mary accompanying her. For once the fractured, divided and pitted against each other wives were together in silence. The legacy shattered beyond the courthouse doors. The world already knew. News crawlers flashed. Kody Brown arrested in fraud case. Social media blew up with shock. Memes, outrage and gossip. Fans who had been following Sister Wives since day one saw the once proud patriarch tumble from glory in real time. He had been the leader, the provider, the visionary for all these years, claiming it. But his legacy was redefined in one photograph. Kody Brown in handcuffs, screaming futilely as the law swept him off. Janelle on the courthouse steps, finally turned to the waiting crowd. Her voice was steady, calm, but it crackled with emotion. This was never about vengeance, she stated. It was about responsibility. For far too long, Kody dominated everyone and everything. This day the truth was revealed, and justice was served. The camera bulbs were blinding, taking in every sentence, every sob, every scrap of fortitude in her voice. And somewhere, in the midst of flashing lights and screaming headlines, Kody Brown was pushed into the back of a police car. His smug and unwavering face now appeared hollow. The fall was complete. The courthouse doors clanged shut behind Kody Brown. And for a fleeting moment the entire building let its breath out. The ring of the gavel still resonated in the air, combined with the tinny clink of handcuffs. It was something that no one in that courtroom would ever forget. Outside, pandemonium erupted. Journalists descended upon the steps. Microphones and cameras held aloft. Shouts filled the air. "Kody, do you have a statement? Janelle, was this revenge or justice? Robin, will you stand by your husband?" But Kody wasn't there to respond anymore. He was already being pushed into the back of a police car. His angry screams muffled behind tinted windows. His golden locks, once a trademark of his quirky personality, were wet with perspiration, sticking to his forehead as the world caught him at his most embarrassing moment. The headlines were quick. Kody Brown arrested. Sister Wives patriarch faces fraud charges. From polygamous pride to courtroom shame. Wives turn against Kody. Justice or betrayal. The silence of the wives within the courthouse. The wives sat there for a very long time, frozen in their chairs. Christine blotched at her eyes with a tissue. Not because she mourned Kody, but because years of pent-up emotion had finally come to the surface. Mary sat rigidly, looking straight ahead, her hands so tightly folded they'd turned white. But Janelle, at the very heart of it all, remained stone still. She wasn't victorious. She wasn't defeated. She was determined. For months she had borne the weight of evidence, the burden of deceit, fear of what would occur when the truth revealed itself. Now it was finished. Or at least this chapter.
She stood first. Her heels clicked on the shiny courtroom floor. Christine stepped out behind her, followed by Mary, and the three women moved out together. Not in harmony, not practiced, but with a sense of solidarity that they hadn't shared in years. Behind them, Robin sat. Her mascara was running down her cheeks. Her breath caught in sobs that racked her body. She was holding onto her purse, as if it were a life raft. Her eyes frantically flicking to the door where Kody had been taken from her. She was muttering over and over again. This wasn't supposed to happen. He promised. But nobody consoled her. The children react. While the news was spreading like wildfire, the Brown kids had started reacting in real time. Some were stuck to their phones, scrolling through updates and watching live coverage. Others stayed away from the screens, not quite prepared for the humiliation splashed on the globe. Logan, Janelle's oldest, stood in shock, his jaw clenched. I always knew Dad was irresponsible with money, he grumbled to a sibling on the phone. But I never thought this would happen. At the same time, some of the younger kids wept openly, bewildered by the photos of their dad in handcuffs. Why is Daddy in trouble? One sobbed, holding on to his mother. Janelle hugged him close, tears brimming in her own eyes. But she could not lie. Because Daddy made mistakes. She breathed quietly. And now he has to pay the price. The media storm, news trucks clogged up the streets for blocks. Commentators debated on the air. Was this justice long overdue? Or was this the wives' revenge? What does this mean for the future of the Brown family brand? Footage of Kody being hauled out of court ran over and over again. His yelling, his resistance. The rattle of handcuffs. It was played in slow motion, broken down frame by frame, interpreted by body language experts, repeated by late-night talk show comedians. The once famous patriarch of a polygamous empire had become late-night fodder. His downfall wasn't just a headline. It was entertainment. Janelle speaks. When Janelle finally emerged onto the courthouse steps, the crowd surged forward. Microphones thrust toward her face. The flash of cameras was blinding. But she didn't flinch. She held her folder of evidence like a shield. Her face calm but grave. Revenge was never the point, she told the crowd, her voice firm over the din of reporters. Justice was the point. Kody took our trust, our money and our love and used them poorly. He thought he could get whatever he wanted, and never pay a price. Today the court informed him otherwise. Her words sliced through the tumult like a knife. For the first time, the story was no longer tabloid gossip, but something more. A tale of responsibility. Christine stepped forward alongside her, adding quietly, "We gave him years to change. He never did. Maybe now, he'll finally confront the truth." Mary, more hesitant but still there, said nothing. Her presence was a statement in itself. Robin's breakdown on the other side of the steps. Robin finally appeared, her face flushed and smeared with tears. Unlike the others, she didn't hold for the cameras. She charged forward, screaming into the crowd. "You don't get it. He's not a monster. He loves his family." She broke, high-pitched and desperate. "This is a mistake. This is all lies. Janelle, you did this to him." The cameras gobbled up each moment. The reporters pushed closer, lenses snapping at Robin's hysteria. But nobody stopped them. Nobody calmed her. Janelle looked at her once. Once only. Her eyes unyielding. "He did this to himself." "Robin," she stated icily, before she walked away. The crowd gasped as the quote went viral, before she even completed the sentence. Public outrage and division. The public was divided in half. Some defended Janelle and the wives for their strength of character. Others felt sorry for Robin, believing she was the sole faithful partner remaining. Others spoke up about how Kody was merely a man overwhelmed by the burden of his own non-traditional existence. But there was one thing certain. His reputation was in tatters. Sponsors took a step back. TLC's silence became deafening. Speculation ran rampant that the network was weighing the possibility of severing ties altogether. Kody in custody. At the same time, within the county jail, Kody sat in a holding cell, his head buried in his hands. The fluorescent lights hummed above him, harsh and unyielding. The acrid scent of disinfectant and cold steel hung heavy in the air. He relived the moment, over and over again. The gavel, the cuffs, Janelle's glare. He had always thought he could out-talk, out-charm, out-maneuver anyone. But this time, words hadn't worked. He wasn't the patriarch in this place. He was another inmate waiting for processing. The wives together that evening. For the first time in years. Janelle, Christine and Mary sat together in Janelle's living room. The kids played quietly in another room. But the three women held between them a silence that was heavy and healing. Christine finally broke it. Do you think he'll ever admit what he did? Janelle shook her head. No, but at least now, he doesn't get to control us anymore. Mary sighed. I wasted so many years believing him. Believing he knew best. Christine reached over, squeezing her hand. We all did. But we're free now. Janelle looked at them both. Her voice soft but firm. This isn't just the end of Kody's reign. It's the beginning of something new. For us and for our kids. For the first time in years. They experienced something they hadn't experienced in a long time. Unity. The legacy rewritten. By morning it was all over the story. Newspapers, talk shows, podcasts, social media pages. Everyone was discussing Kody Brown. But this time, the story was not one of polygamy or family eccentricities. It was one of downfall, betrayal, and the bravery of the women who stood against him. The world would not be remembering Kody Brown as flashy sister wives patriarch anymore. They would be remembering him as the guy who believed he was above everyone else. Until his own family stood him down.